Let me ask you this. If I were to show you a religious book that had absolutely no contradictions in it, would it make it true?
So I have one with you right now.
Would it make it true? Can you just answer the question? Listen, I literally have a hard copy printout for another preacher that is a contradiction. But you said yourself...
What's the contradiction?
It's an axe.
Right. So here's my question. So do we have a way to actually test the taser? Do we have a way to test the faith that is so crucial, possibly, to supporting the spokes or the reasons for the belief?
Like 4 answers popped in my head at once, and I don't think either of them. So,
do you want to repeat the question back to me?
I was going to say, is there one situation, is there one thing you can point to that would say, no, this is the one thing that made me believe in God or believe in faith or lead me towards this way? Am I understanding that right?
No, sir. No.
Okay.
What I'm wondering is, how can we actually test the faith and the trust and the reliance that you're putting in these reasons? How can we actually test faith to see if your confidence in those conclusions is warranted? We can test the taser, right? We can run 100 examples, and we can poll all your colleagues, and we can get some statistics on it. How can we actually test faith as you're using it as trust and reliance?
Well, for the testing, the God, the faith, the trust, the Jesus kind of thing, it kind of goes back to that whole, like, everyone makes their own individual choice. One person can see the situation, one person can see the other, make a totally different thing.
You're making an individual choice.
So I was going to say a fundamental part, like you said, is someone has to just, when it's all said and done, someone has to make a choice of what's enough for them, what's not enough for them, for it to be fact. So that would be one thing. Because everyone seems to have a totally different threshold. You can use different illustrations for that easily. As far as the testing faith, I know there's some guys in my camp who be like, when you die, that'll test with you. And I'm like, stay back. That just sounds terrible. Like, whether someone believes that's true or not, I mean, yeah, but that's not a test. That's too late. That's a bad time to say, now we know kind of thing.
Well, also, if it doesn't work the way that you think that it does, and you die,
that sucks.
We'd have no way of testing it. So yes.
Right. And so individual choice has to be part of this, which is why when it comes to my approach for people, it's really big a part for how do they individually see, receive, process information. What point do they get to that's enough? Because you take a guy like me, what made me want to believe in God? And if we were to take major events in my life, yes, there's these crazy physical things I've had, the times this happened or that didn't happen, the safety aspect. I take the evidence I've heard from historical perspectives, from a little bit of science I understand and get, that clicks. Like, okay, this makes sense. And I take other examples and I'm like, oh, the thing for God makes sense. You could get some guy, he's going to spend 80, 90 years of his life hearing this and so much more, and that might not be enough. Or, you know what, that simply is. Everyone seems to have this different threshold, kind of.
This idea of a threshold is really interesting to me. It sounds like what you're saying is that, for me, Caleb, the threshold I require to take it on faith that something is true or that my reasons are good and that this God is real, it meets my threshold. I'm okay taking it on faith and maybe not even having a way to test the faith. Like I might be able to test my taser and have my colleagues test this piece of equipment that we use. Are you saying that, are we talking about standards here? Are your standards for what you'll believe on faith less than what maybe a skeptic like myself might be willing to do?
Like I said, I think everyone has just a different standard. That's not for me to understand if you're to use the standard or the threshold.
Yeah, I'm interested in your standard. I'm interested in your threshold.
For me, I mean, like I said, there's been so many situations in my life or the things I've seen that I don't know what that magical or unmagical point was that made me go, oh, this works. I can point to, I guess, defining moments in the same way where you probably had these significant moments where it's like, oh, I do not believe there's this because I saw this happen, I observed this, I heard this, I understood. I don't. I probably have just the same, where it's like, I see this, and it's because we mentioned a few earlier, like, there has to be a God that orchestrated this, who designed this. And that just comes to a personal choice or personal standard or some threshold or something in our heart, which the Bible side of things or the Christian side of things or whatever you would really argue that.
Yeah.
that's a decision between what is right and what is wrong up against God's character and making those choices. But yeah, I guess, I mean, and I really just feel this way, that everyone has a choice. I feel like everyone, they're going to be accountable for their choices. But and I'm getting somewhere, so don't get hung up on too fast. I believe God does give like the 10 Commandments, and God gives a lot of principles in His Word. This is how I want things to be. This is reflecting my character. This is right or wrong. But I know people will talk about, well, when does someone know what is right or wrong? When is that age of accountability kind of thing? I don't know if you've heard that reference, and I hear people argue about that one all day long. Oh, it's this time, it's this age, it's this age. And so, but from reading the Bible, God seems to hold people accountable for, yes, what He's put in His Word, but God seems to understand, well, this is Caleb's life. He is in the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, whatever century we're in, millennials. I don't know. We're here in this century, and this is where I want him. This is the day and age I want him. This is the situations he's going to be up against. You know, yes, he has technology and he has this and this and this, but man, his life is also super busy. And you can now get run over by a car these days. I mean, this is how his experience would work. You could take a guy 1,000 years before, during the early medieval ages kind of thing, and he's not going to get run over by a car, maybe a cart. He maybe knows how to read. It just depends where he's at. And you take all these guys, different situations, and I feel like, yes, God still has His Word. God still has this is right or wrong. But I also feel like when God's going to say, hey, this is what's going on in your life, you might need 30 years before you get here. So for some other guys, God's like, you know what? You're going to get here in about 5 years, this understanding of me. When it's all said and done, I still feel like people have a choice, and that's one of the things God does. Ultimately, you're going to have a choice which way you want to go. God's going to let you make that choice. But I feel because of experiences, the time we live, family, and all these different things, I don't feel like it's my place to get onto somebody's case, because it might take them 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years longer than me to get this point. And who am I to get onto them? Because I'm not in their shoes. I'm not seeing their situations kind of thing. I feel like it's the same God, but it's kind of like, you get a parent.
Before we get into that example, is it conceivable that what a person might need to do is lower their threshold where they'll be willing to take it on faith that these things are actually happening because of God? Is that what kind of you're saying? Like, listen, whether you have to wait 30 years or it happens in 5 years, what is that person actually waiting for? Do they have to come to the realization that I can take it on faith that this is true? That I can take it on faith that these are good reasons? That I can take it on faith that those reasons really do justify the claim that a God is real?
It kind of goes to the whole personal choice. And I think it goes back to that personal choice.
You said personal choice a lot.
Personal choice, because I really feel like for a lot of people, it's their personal choice for whatever XYZ reasons is.
Are you making a personal choice to set your threshold at a level where you'll take it on faith that these justifications warrant a high degree of confidence that your God is real?
Because it would look from your personal choices, I'm guessing you would look at my situation and be like, holy cow, it took barely XYZ to make him believe in a God. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do with this person? This is ridiculous. But in the same, you could just spin it around that I could look at the same way and be like, I don't see how this isn't adding up kind of thing. And that's where, like I said, I think it gets to the personal choice. How can one person perceive this as evidence,
right,
and the other person believe this isn't evidence?
I can actually probably answer that from my perspective, where if you said, listen, Anthony, you can have peace in heaven and Jesus will be there and He'll be your Savior and open up your heart and He'll wash away your sins and all this stuff. However, in order for you to be sure that the reasons that you think are good reasons for concluding that this is all true, is you need to trust it and take it on faith and rely on it. And you don't actually have a way to test it. We can't test that taser. You just need to take it on faith. You need to trust that it's the case. And I actually have a way of demonstrating that this trust maybe is not reliable. Can you understand why maybe a skeptic like myself might not be willing to go on that journey with you? Okay.
Because I look at situations I've been in, and it's like, God gave me, okay, for another example, personal safety, there's been times I'm just sitting there in my car, I feel something in my head saying, you need to look behind you. And oh, there's the guy, he has the gun. All right, it's time to deal with business. I've had times where there was no outside anything going on that could, some people, oh, that was instinct. Well, what gave me the instinct to know that something wasn't right with my surroundings? I've had times where I'm walking through an alleyway and something's telling me, time to go right turn, take a right turn. There's the guy, there's the suspect just standing there. He was just standing there. He wasn't making any noise. He wasn't making sound. There's nothing in my head that would tell me to do that. Nothing biological that would say, hey, give me a heads up there. I've had enough situations like, oh, I feel like there's something over us, something watching us, giving us heads up. And some people would argue in the camp of if you're, because typically you look through scripture, God. Well, not typically.
Before we get into the scripture, and I think what you're saying is that you would take it on faith. That's actually the God that made those things happen, that made you look up, that made you look into your rear view mirror.
It just comes down to a personal choice. I believe this or now I'm going to believe that. Because I feel like those are situations, oh, I tested my faith, my trust. Like I said, go back to these situations and experiences that I'm up against. I feel like they were a test of faith.
What would be a situation, a personal experience, where it would actually show that your faith was not warranted, that faith can't be relied on to conclude that these things are true?
I guess I wouldn't have a situation I can think of, because it would go off to the personal choice. You get the classic illustration, there's no atheists in foxholes. It's BS. I know plenty of atheists in foxholes kind of thing. It's such the easy example because it happened with so many people who came from these wars. They see it. You get one guy's like, I see all this pain and suffering. There is no God. You see the other person's like, shoot, there has to be something more than this. If this is all there is, there must be something else out there, because this can't be all there is to it. And they both made a personal choice. They both saw the evidence and they perceived it their own way. Mm-hmm. They both had to make a personal choice, just using that word on, this is what I'm presented with, how I'm going to take this. And I guess I see that work a lot when you get into things like crime scenes. One person believes it's a suicide, one person believes it's a murder. The same evidence, you're seeing the same exact thing, you're seeing the same photos, you're seeing the same things, you're talking to the same suspects, but you get one person, for whatever reason, their personal experiences, they see the situation and they take it totally different. And I see that work all the time.
How would you, Caleb, be able to tell that your faith in this conclusion and in these justifications is misplaced? Do you have a way of figuring it out?
I guess there'd be just like years of experience to work against, because we talk to those contradictions in the Bible. We talk about the miracles. We talk about what I see in science.
Here's my thing.
There'd be a lot of that.
Here's what I'm noticing. Here's what I'm noticing is that it seems like faith for you, when it comes to God existing, only works in one way. It's confirming the test. It's saying, yep, that faith was good. It brought me to this conclusion. My God is real. And you don't have a way of determining what a failed application of faith might look like when it comes to the God. We have these great examples of the taser where it would fail. Like, oh, my trust was misplaced in this device. Oh, here's the disconnect that I'm struggling to understand is if faith is always leading a person to conclude that what they think is true is really true, how on earth could we actually test it?
All right, let's take a crazy scenario then. So if you were to take, do you believe in demons, angels, anything along those lines?
No.
So for a person then to have a confrontation with like an angel or a demon or something like that, and God would miraculously intervene, situations sound far-fetched to you? Not far-fetched? Be honest. I can take it.
I'm being completely honest with you from the second I walked up to here. No, I think that's pretty far-fetched.
Okay. So if someone were to believe that was a test of their faith, how God would bail them out in a situation like that, you would look at that test as being completely illegitimate from the get-go. That person has made a personal choice that they believe in XYZ things because of based on facts. They get rescued from that situation. They get saved from that situation. But you don't even believe the test is valid. So it's kind of hard to argue this person's personal choice being invalid if you don't even believe their tests are valid. Are you tracking with that? Here to take.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
if I don't accept the premise that there are angels and demons, I have no way of testing the claim that a God is real.
you know,
It's almost,
if someone was to say, "Hey, God saved me from I bumped into a demon in an alley or something," it's like that. For the record, I haven't had the situation. But if you have someone, "Hey, I bumped into a demon in an alley. Jesus literally popped out, slapped the demon off. Good, I'm safe, I'm fine. That was a test. I pray for Jesus to help me, save me." You would look at that situation, and I'm guessing, and correct me, you would say that's an illegitimate test. There's a lot of other things I'm wondering now. There's situations we bump into and we look at, and we have to. Some people don't believe the test is even. If we're going to use the testing we're referring to, they wouldn't even believe that test of faith is even valid because they don't believe in half of the ingredients for the test, or the methods for this or methods for that. Because one thing I haven't brought up a lot, because I don't see how I really could bring it up a lot, is prayer. Because if you don't believe that there's any kind of spiritual force, then I don't know how you would look at prayers. And I look at prayers being answered or not answered as a considerable thing. And so, but if you don't even believe a prayer is valid,
would I require faith to conclude that prayers work?
if personally you feel like it's a faith thing, then yes. And so that's why it's kind of hard to
See, this is the dilemma that I find myself, is that these things all keep coming down to faith. And if we don't have a way to actually test faith in this life, because in your view, it seems like, hey, if I rely on these reasons, my God is real. It doesn't seem like there's a way to tell that the faith was misplaced when it comes to concluding that gods are real.
Because we can easily spin that around in evolution. How do you test out evolution being real? We can't see it. We can't observe it. We can't. A dog gave birth to a dog. We can't sit down there and look at millions of years of evidence. You would have to have your faith, and you've heard this. I know you've heard this before. You'd have to have faith and trust in your instruments. The very same thing you're telling me about is something I'm guessing you do probably in the scientific community all the time. There has to reach a point you decide, this is what I am going to cling to, I'm going to hold to. I have to at least start out with this basic fact right here. And I'm not trying to spin it back, I
think those are good examples, but I think in those instances, people who are concluding that evolution is true or whatever would probably be able to identify what would change their view on it. What they could accept to show that my trust, my reliance on this set of tools, for example, was not warranted. And that's where I think the big disconnect is.
Okay. So, like, if I saw a missing link, would that disprove my belief in a God or not?
Well, I think we talked about that already. Your view on evolution. Yeah. We don't need to go down that again.
And if my buddy who believes in Jesus or doesn't believe in Jesus gets shot and killed after I've been praying for him for a month, I wouldn't conclude that, my God doesn't exist, because I would probably look at that as, maybe I just don't understand what's going on. I don't understand X, Y, Z.
Just so you know.
So there had to reach a point. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, just so you know, I have to kind of wrap it up pretty soon. I've got another appointment. But I'm wondering, do you think that do you have the ability to summarize what we've talked about with regards to faith and how and the role that it plays and my potential concerns with it?
Well, I guess that verse in Proverbs is kind of, I guess I would say, it's a big life verse for me. Those two verses, that's been, I guess, the thing I've clung on to since I've been in school. The Proverbs 3, 5, and 6.
Right, where you've identified it as trust and reliance on things. But I'm wondering, I'm sort of wondering how much of our discussion is actually stuck with you and what stands out with regards to our discussion about faith. Can you verbalize my concern that I have with faith?
Because there doesn't seem to be a good test to prove to me that there isn't a God.
Right.
That he doesn't exist.
Right. That the reasons that so if I have a personal experience and I take it on faith that was actually the God that did that experience, I can use faith to conclude that it was God, but I can't apply faith or use faith in a way that would demonstrate that it was not warranted, it was not justified, that my trust and reliance in it wasn't a good idea. It only seems to work in one way. But when we use it for other things like walking across bridges or carrying around tasers, we do have a component to test the faith to see if it was warranted.
You would say I would have faith and trust in my taser because I'm still carrying my taser.
Pardon me?
I still carry my taser. I have faith and trust in my taser.
Yeah.
I've had some bad times with it, but I do have faith and trust in my taser, and we'll see how it works out in the future. But I have faith and trust to pull it out again and to work it.
Yeah. And we have a way to tell that taser failed you, that the faith that you put in that taser in that instance wasn't warranted. And yet when it comes to the God, it doesn't seem like we have that ability.
I guess it would just be a personal choice thing. I guess we keep
Personal
getting back
choice.
on that point.
Personal choice.
I feel
And this
like
gets to
that's
threshold and standards and that type of thing. So, yeah, maybe we could just wrap it up. I think that was a really good talk.
Do you need anything else?
Nah?
Written transcripts, interpretive dance, anything?
Don't forget your coffee. You wanted me to remind you about that.
I
See?
appreciate that.
Do you want a water?
I'm good, thank you. I do appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for your time.
And no problem at all. I am just honestly interested, and if I have to say I won't preach, I'll say I won't preach or anything like that. But what did get you to this? Like, because you said you grew up in a religious home kind of thing, and
What got me to what? Not believing in a God?
Yeah, in the atheist thing. What led to your decisions kind of thing?
Well, I was a skeptical kid. For the sake of my parents, I pretty much just pretended that I believed because I got the sense that it'd probably crush them. But then as I get older and you get married and you start having kids and you start thinking about what you really believe and what you want your kids to be taught, I kind of came to grips with my atheism, my skepticism. And when you take a look at the world and some of the problems that we're having because people are taking it on faith that their God is real, not just Jesus, but other gods. I've talked to Muslims that say, I'm trusting and relying that Allah is real, and I'm taking it on faith that that's the case. And I'm now behaving differently because of it. When you come to that realization that people are acting out on their beliefs, potentially in harmful ways, that it's kind of motivated me to want to try to do something about it. Which is why I like to engage with people about all sorts of claims. So that's why I'm here today. So not only just talking with you, but tomorrow I might go out and do more talks and chat with people.
How did your parents take it? When did they find out about the whole?
My dad's dead now. He's been dead for about 4 years.
Sorry about that.
I think I kind of came out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom's a little upset about it, but she's of the mindset that I'll come around to Jesus. I told her to just put that responsibility on the God and not herself, and I think it took a lot of pressure off of her.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't see it happening because I think it would require me to possibly lower my threshold and then take it on faith that this God was real.
Yeah.
But if that's the case, why couldn't I just take it on faith that some other God was real? And there's my dilemma.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah.
How many?
They're all believers. Actually, I have a sister who's married to a young earth creationist.
So I'm like one of 6, and we all went like literally geographically.
Are you the rest? Let's wait. Wait till this. Are the rest of your siblings also young earth creationists?
It's all mixed and matched. Same with my wife's siblings, and that's why a big thing I've come to. I look at families. I'm like, to me, it's perplexing and intriguing. I like seeing how, and maybe it's just because of work. I'm amazed when someone looks at us. They can have the same upbringing, same environment, and seeing how that person went this way. It just, to me, it amazed me, and that's why I asked, like, okay, what else was going on behind the scenes that your siblings that made you go, hold up a second?
I don't know. I mean, I was the oldest, so maybe it was, my mom and dad asking me to help put presents out for Santa, and maybe I watched some public television. I don't really know what the influences were, but I always thought God was kind of made up like Santa.
Okay.
I always did, and that was at a very, very young age. But here's what I'm wondering, though. I wonder if this does come down to thresholds or standards. And I'm not trying to elevate myself compared to you, or I'm not doing this at all. But I am wondering if...
Just taking it personally.
You did mention that you were raised in a family where... And you were homeschooled, right? And
I did all 3.
I'm wondering if that had any influence on your threshold capacity.
I would say, yeah, but then my just came out and said, BS, like from the get-go with the whole thing. Because we started out with Christian school. My mom was a teacher. And so we just went to the same school. And then later we were public school. And then later we were homeschooled. We did it all. But the whole time during it, like from very young, even from the Christian school thing, even at the Christian school, was like, this is BS. So even in that environment, it's like, this is
that's
BS.
so interesting.
This is baloney. And so that's why at first I thought, oh, that's weird. I don't know why she did that. But then I take my wife's family, and she has a that did the exact same thing.
Do you go so far as to say these folks just don't want to believe, they want to rebel, they want to revel in their sin?
I think that's where I used to be, that they're just...
That's really frustrating to hear as a
something.
skeptic.
Well, I was going to say that's how I used to be. I was going to say that's how I used to be. They're like, oh, they're just being dumb. That as a kid, that's where I just dismissed it. They're just being dumb. They're being difficult. They're being rebellious. That's where I used to be. Okay? Now I'm at the point, it's just their personal choice. Because, I guess, maybe work mellowed me out. I see so many situations. We had her, she has a gun in her hand by her head. Some people that's a murder, some people that's a suicide. And I think after so many of those, I'm like, people can see the same exact evidence and give some wow arguments for why that was a murder. I'm like, wow, that's making me like, kind of, that's interesting. I've
never quite thought of it that way before.
And I've seen enough crime scenes, I guess, where I'm like, I don't get on people's case. I don't know everything. I pretty much know I don't know everything. And so as I like, especially now, I like to hear, why did someone arrive at that? And it gives me time to think about it, do I see that the same way?
Yeah.
Is there something I'm predisposed? I don't see it the same way because I've seen enough of these crime scenes where, like, okay, you believe, just for example, like, okay, that was a murder. Yes, it's in their hand, but you believe because the size of the weapon, she wouldn't have that size of the weapon. How would she get that? No one else heard the gunshot. This is very interesting. Was she placed here afterwards? That board right there, that is weird. That is baloney kind of thing. Okay, all of a sudden this sounds very convincing. But then I see someone else argue, that board, it's because she puts her TV remote on that board. And the reason she has this big gun is because way back in the day, she was given this by this. The reason no one heard a gunshot is because it was this evening, everyone else was out. And I watched the two people go back and forth, and I'm like, this is fascinating to me because both of them have the same number of years on, the same number of experience. They're both professionals. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're looking at it totally differently. And so I think past couple years, I've seen enough of these situations where I'm like, okay, let me back up. Let me look at siblings now. Instead of being like, oh, they're just being an idiot or they're being goof. Because I used to have very much that hard viewpoint of just being a goof. And then it's like, no, let me sit back. What made my decide that this was baloney? And I look at what for her she took as a contradiction, like in parenting. For like one thing, I took as my mom and dad were trying to be loving, and they made the sacrifice, and they're happy they're able to do a little bit better than their parents before them. I look at a situation and she's like, wow, the church sucks. They are cutthroat. And I look at that as, oh, the Bible says people are still people and they'll be this way even in the church. But like I said, and so now I look at it more like, I see how you got to that conclusion. I see how you arrived there. That makes sense. Well, like I have a friend of mine, a buddy, and he did a tour over in Iraq. And because I asked him one day, I was like, hey, what made you be an atheist? No preaching, nothing. Just tell me why. And he was telling me about this horrific scenario. Well, not scenario, I mean, just real life thing where he was going through a school that had just been bombed. He's going by all the kids. There's nothing he can do for any of them. He has to get to his objective. And seeing the burns, the flames, and he told me that, and he said for him, he kind of like his whole life, and that moment was the crucial, like, baloney to this. And I think me before would have really stopped and been like, hold on, I'm not even going to listen to your explanation. This is why you're wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I think more is now I hear that, I'm like, that really does suck. Let's take a moment and recognize that. That is a terrible situation. I'm glad I didn't have to see that situation. That will give you a lifetime of counseling that right there and make you look at things differently. And it makes me better understand that's why now you look at things this way, or that was a pivotal thing that pushed you over to this. So for me, just to jump on your cases, wrong, uneducated, it's not sympathetic.
So you have experienced a lot of growth in the last 4 years since we chatted.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I look at people with that, and for me, it makes me go, but in the same way he would take a personal choice, he would look at an environment like that. I would look at that, and he'd call me a doofus. I would look at a situation like that and be like, this is what happens when men call the shots, when we decide there is no God and we're going to live this way. We do this to each other. And he would laugh me out the room or something like that. But that to me is just why I don't get on people who grew up with it.
Yeah.
And they went this way and that is because, no, there's something in your head that's convincing totally opposite. So I'm not going to get on your case at all. I'm not going to, because there's a reason you got there. And I didn't walk in your shoes. I didn't see how you're looking at that. I didn't feel what you're feeling in her because I'm an optimist. The glass is half full and the waitress is on the way to fill it up. I know other people, they do not look at it that way.
Just to wrap it up, but if you have a willingness to listen to people and empathize with them and hear them out, and then if you, I know that you prefer like natural or organic conversations, but you might actually want to look into street epistemology. You might really like, I don't know how many examples you've seen. I like to think that my examples have improved since we've last talked.
You have to spell that for me. Email that.
Let me, I got
just email it to me later, and you can write it out.
I got something for you. It has it on it. But I think it would be really cool if you did look into it, especially if you're willing to hear people out and engage with them. You have my email address.
Yeah, absolutely.
But dude, thank you very much for talking to me.
And if you need to meet up again, just give me a heads up. But no, and for what it's worth, and if we do meet up again, if you do want to say more for why you're looking at weird thing, I'm not looking at it as a backdoor way to let me say why I don't believe this is wrong or right. More for me, it's I honestly want to hear why people got to where they got to.
Yeah.
And for me, it gives me something, maybe I'm selfish, it gives me something to think about and to mull over. And even just, for me, just to pray about and to think about. But hey, no, thank you.
Dude,
good.
That was really
Let me know
great.
if you need anything else, okay?
Okay, yeah, take it easy.
It's like the last warm day of the year.
Might be.
Okay, appreciate it.
Faith and trust in what we can see.
All right. And there is a difference between trust and faith.
And I have both.
Thank you. All right.
It's Jesus.
I gotta get out of here.
Verse 10 be it known unto you all, to all the people of Israel, that by the name of whom Jesus Christ is heaven.
Hey Troy, how you doing? I got that stuff for you.
I'm going to leave my connection to the Discord server going on. Feel free to ask me some more questions, jump in, talk amongst yourselves. That was a pretty fun talk. I mean, I guess I'll put it on YouTube just because so many people watched the first one and people are always asking for an update.